The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds against the void as Director Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Lunar Base Alpha, her dark eyes fixed on the unusual readings flooding her quantum detection array. At 52, she had spent 3 decades developing humanity's defense systems, preparing for a day many thought would never come. Now those preparations would be put to the test. "Director, you need to see this." Dr. James Rodriguez, her chief of xenophysics, rushed into the room, his tablet displaying a cascade of data. "The quantum distortions are unlike anything we've ever recorded. Whatever's coming, it's big." Sarah nodded. Her expression remained carefully neutral. "How long?" "At current velocities, they'll reach Mars orbit in 6 hours." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Earth's Unified Defense Council convened an emergency session. Military assets were quietly mobilized, and humanity's most closely guarded secrets were prepared for potential deployment. They appeared exactly as predicted. A fleet of crystalline vessels that seemed to catch and reflect every bit of solar light, creating a spectacular display that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so terrifying. The largest ship alone dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, at least publicly. The message came on all frequencies, in perfect English. A towering figure appeared on screens worldwide. Humanoid but clearly alien, with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. "I am High Commander Vexthor of the Meridian Empire. Your world has been chosen for integration into our grand civilization. Resistance is futile. Your technological level is centuries behind ours. Submit, and we will guide your species to enlightenment. Refuse, and we will demonstrate the consequence of defiance. You have 1 planetary rotation to respond." In the United Earth Defense Command Center, buried deep beneath the Rockies, Sarah Chen stood before the assembled leadership of humanity. "They're right about one thing," she began, her voice steady. "Their visible technology is far beyond what we've publicly achieved, but they've made 3 critical mistakes." She raised one finger. "First, they assumed our public technology represents our actual capabilities." A second finger joined the first. "Second, they think we've been developing technology in isolation, following the same paths they did." A third finger rose. "And third, they believe we'll respond like every other species they've encountered." The UN Secretary General leaned forward. "Director Chen, you've been warning us about this possibility for years. Are we truly ready?" Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Mr. Secretary, humanity has spent its entire history preparing for this moment. We just didn't know it. Every war, every conflict, every time we were outgunned but refused to submit. We were learning. While they were perfecting their technology, we were perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare." She gestured to the holographic display showing the alien fleet. "They expect us to either submit or attempt to fight them conventionally. They don't expect what we actually have planned." "And what exactly do we have planned, Director?" the Chinese premier asked, his eyes narrowing. "We're going to show them why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology." Sarah's expression hardened. "It's our ability to turn their strengths into weaknesses." The response was transmitted exactly 1 minute before the deadline expired. Sarah stood before the camera, her message brief and clear. "High Commander Vexthor, humanity appreciates your offer. However, we must decline. Earth is not yours to take. We are not yours to command. You speak of enlightenment, but true wisdom would be reconsidering your choices right now." End transmission. In his command ship, Vexthor's color-shifting skin flickered with amusement. Such pride from such primitives. Begin the demonstration. Target their largest military installation. The first shots fired by the Meridian Empire were meant to showcase their overwhelming power. Instead, they revealed humanity's first surprise. The massive energy beams simply vanished, absorbed by quantum shields that shouldn't have been possible with Earth's known technology. "Impossible," Vexthor whispered, his skin turning a pale blue of shock. Their energy signatures suggested nothing close to this level of advancement. "That's because we didn't advance the way you did," Sarah's voice came through on their command frequency. "We developed differently. Think of it as convergent evolution. Same destination, very different path." The alien commander's response was predictable. He ordered a full barrage. Every ship in his fleet opened fire, enough firepower to crack a planet. But humanity's defenses held, using the Empire's own energy against them, feeding it back into the shield network. What followed was humanity's first revelation. Thousands of small craft emerging from hidden bases on Mars, the Moon, and even the asteroid belt. They looked crude, almost primitive, but their capabilities defied conventional physics. The battle that followed would be studied for centuries to come. Imperial ships found their advanced targeting systems confused by human vessels that seemed to flicker in and out of reality. Their energy weapons were absorbed or redirected. Their perfect formations were broken by tactics that no rational military force would attempt, yet somehow worked. As the first day of combat drew to a close, with several Imperial ships disabled and the rest unable to effect any meaningful damage, Vexthor received another transmission from Sarah Chen. "This was just our defensive screen, Commander. Would you like to see our actual warships now? Or would you prefer to reconsider your choices?" The first major battle between humanity and the Meridian Empire ended not with Earth's submission, but with the retreat of the invasion fleet. As they fled, Sarah Chen's final message followed them. "Remember this day, and what you learned. Humanity doesn't bow to threats. We never have. We never will. And we're just getting started." In the aftermath, as humanity prepared for the war they knew would follow, Sarah Chen stood again at the observation deck of Lunar Base Alpha. The stars seemed different now, no longer distant and unreachable, but full of possibilities and challenges. "They'll be back," Dr. Rodriguez said quietly, joining her at the window. "Of course they will," Sarah replied. "With a bigger fleet, new weapons, different tactics. But they still won't understand." "Understand what?" "That humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology, our defenses, or even our determination." She turned to face him, her expression serious. "It's our creativity. We've spent thousands of years imagining every possible way aliens might attack us, and then we spent those same years figuring out how to beat them. They're about to learn why you should never attack a species that turned preparing for alien invasions into entertainment." As if to emphasize her point, the quantum detection array began picking up new signals. The Meridian Empire was mobilizing its main fleet. The real war was about to begin, and humanity was ready. The Meridian Empire's main battle fleet emerged from quantum space 3 weeks after their initial defeat. This time, they came prepared, or so they thought. 5,000 ships strong, their formation stretched across the space between Mars and Jupiter, their crystalline hulls creating an artificial constellation that outshone the natural stars. In her new command center deep within Titan's ice crust, Sarah Chen watched the tactical display with her command staff. The Empire's ships had changed, adapted. New weapon systems, stronger shields, different formations. They'd learned from their first defeat, but they still didn't understand the fundamental lesson. "They're being cautious," Colonel Naya Patil observed, her cybernetic eye scanning the tactical data. "Notice how they're maintaining distance, probing our defense grid with long-range scans instead of charging in." Sarah nodded. "They think they've figured us out. Classic military thinking. Analyze the enemy's capabilities, develop countermeasures, apply overwhelming force." She touched a control, bringing up a new display. Time to show them why that doesn't work against humans. The Empire's first attack was precise and measured. Instead of energy weapons, they launched swarms of autonomous combat drones, each one carrying a payload of exotic particles designed to disrupt quantum shields. On paper, it was the perfect counter to humanity's defensive screen. But humanity didn't play on paper. As the drone swarm approached Earth's orbit, they encountered something unexpected. Nothing. The quantum shields that had frustrated their first attack were gone. The crude but effective defense platforms had vanished. Earth hung in space, seemingly defenseless. In his flagship, now renamed Humanity's Lesson, High Commander Vex Thor's skin shifted through patterns of confusion and suspicion. "Status report," he demanded. "My lord, we're detecting no active defense systems," his sensor officer reported. "Their military installations appear abandoned. Population centers are showing minimal activity. It's as if they've given up." Vex Thor's skin darkened. "No, this is wrong. Initiate full spectrum scan. Deploy the new sensor drones. Find their defenses." The Empire's sensor drones spread out, searching for hidden weapons or cloaked ships. They found nothing. Earth's orbit was clear. The moon showed no signs of the bases they detected before. Mars was silent. "My lord," his tactical officer called out, "the drone swarm is approaching optimal attack range. Should we proceed?" Vex Thor hesitated. In 10,000 years of Imperial expansion, no species had ever simply abandoned their defenses. It had to be a trap. But where was the threat? The answer came from a direction no Imperial commander had ever considered: the drones themselves. As they reached attack position, their control systems suddenly shifted. Complex Imperial programming was overwritten by something else, something that shouldn't have been possible. "My lord, the drones, they're not responding to commands." The Empire watched in horror as their own drone swarm turned around, their exotic particle weapons now aimed at the Imperial fleet. But that was just the beginning. "Did you know," Sarah Chen's voice came through on all frequencies, "that humans have been writing stories about artificial intelligence rebellion for over a century? We've imagined every possible way it could happen, every potential vulnerability. Your drone's quantum processors are impressive, but their basic architecture isn't that different from what we theorized. We've had centuries to think about how to subvert it." The reprogrammed drones struck first, their weapons disrupting Imperial shields just as intended. Only now they were disrupting the wrong shields. But they were just the prelude. Space itself seemed to ripple as humanity's real defense grid revealed itself. Not the obvious platforms and ships from their first encounter, but something far more insidious. Thousands of microsatellites, each one barely larger than a human hand, had been hidden in plain sight, disguised as orbital debris. "Another thing about humans," Sarah continued, her voice almost conversational. "We're really good at hiding things in plain sight. Your sensors were looking for weapon signatures, energy readings, the kind of defenses you understand. They weren't looking for what appeared to be space junk." The microsatellites activated in sequence, each one generating a tiny quantum field. Alone, they were insignificant. Together, they created a web of intersecting fields that turned local space itself into a weapon. Imperial ships found their carefully plotted formations disrupted as space twisted around them. Weapons fire curved in impossible directions. Communications became erratic. The perfect coordination that made the Imperial fleet so formidable began to break down. But the real surprise came from Saturn's rings. As the Imperial fleet struggled to maintain formation, the ice and rock debris that had circled the gas giant for billions of years revealed its secret. Humanity had spent years hollowing out selected chunks of rock and ice, turning them into stealth weapons platforms. "You see, Commander," Sarah explained as the first relativistic chunks of ice struck Imperial ships at a significant fraction of light speed. "We figured you'd come back with countermeasures for everything you saw in our first battle, so we made sure you didn't see our real defenses." The battle that followed was unlike anything in Imperial military history. Their ships, the pride of a civilization spanning thousands of worlds, were being defeated by repurposed space debris and hijacked drones. Every attempt to adapt was met with a new form of warfare they'd never considered. When they tried to jump to quantum space to regroup, they discovered another surprise. The microsatellite network had created a localized field that prevented quantum space transitions. They were trapped in normal space, their every advantage turned against them. "Fascinating, isn't it?" Sarah's voice came through again as the Imperial fleet's formation completely collapsed. You spent millennia perfecting your technology. We spent millennia perfecting the art of using our enemy's strength against them. Guess which approach works better? As his fleet fell into chaos, Vexthor received one final transmission, this time on his private command frequency. "By the way, Commander," Sarah said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement, "those microsatellites. They're just the outer layer of our defense grid. Would you like to see what else we've been hiding, or would you prefer to leave while you still have ships capable of retreat?" The Meridian Empire's main battle fleet, the most powerful military force in known space, retreated for the second time. As they fled, leaving disabled and destroyed ships in their wake, humanity's true fleet emerged from hiding spots throughout the solar system. In her command center, Sarah Chen watched the tactical display shift, showing the positions of humanity's actual warships. "They'll be back," Colonel Patel said quietly. "Of course they will," Sarah replied. "But next time, we won't be defending. Signal all commands. Operation Checkmate is now active. It's time to show the Empire why starting this war was their biggest mistake." The next phase of the war was about to begin, and humanity was done playing defense. The imperial capital world of Meridia had never known fear. For 10,000 years, it had stood as the crown jewel of galactic civilization, its crystalline spires and quantum architecture a testament to the Empire's technological supremacy. But today, something was different. The usually golden sky had taken on a reddish tinge, and the quantum detection grid was reporting anomalies that defied imperial science. In the Grand Council chamber, the Empire's highest leaders gathered in emergency session. High Commander Vexthor's skin flickered between patterns of anxiety and rage as he delivered his report. "Two of our core worlds have gone silent," he announced, his voice tight with controlled fear. "No destruction, no battles. They simply stopped responding. Our investigation teams find the planets intact, but every piece of Imperial technology is non-functional. It's as if something has fundamentally changed the laws of physics in those systems." Before the Council could respond, the chamber's quantum communications array activated independently. Sarah Chen's face appeared above the Council table, her expression neutral but her eyes intense. "Greetings, Council members. I thought it was time we had a proper conversation about the future of our species' relationship." The Council's security systems tried to block the transmission. They failed. Their quantum encryption, unbroken for millennia, had been bypassed as if it wasn't there. "How dare you?" Vexthor's skin blazed with patterns of fury. "How are you even transmitting to this chamber? This is impossible." "Impossible." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. By the way, you might want to check on your quantum defense grid. It should be failing right about now." Throughout the capital, Imperial systems began shutting down, not with violence or destruction, but with a quiet, inexorable certainty that terrified Imperial citizens far more than any conventional attack could have. "What you're experiencing," Sarah explained, as if giving a lecture, "is something we call a quantum cascade failure. Think of it as a virus, but for reality itself. Your technology is built on manipulating quantum states in very specific ways. We simply changed the rules." In orbit above Meridia, Imperial sensors detected no enemy ships, no incoming weapons. Instead, they found thousands of tiny probes, each smaller than a grain of sand, that had been silently positioning themselves for months. Each probe carried a quantum field generator that operated on principles the Empire had never imagined. "You see," Sarah continued, "while you were perfecting your understanding of how quantum mechanics works, we were imagining ways it could work differently. Your technology is incredibly advanced, but it's all based on the same fundamental principles. We decided to change the principles." On countless Imperial worlds, the same scene was playing out. Their technology wasn't being destroyed. It was being rendered obsolete by localized changes to quantum physics itself. Humanity had found a way to rewrite the rules that Imperial technology relied upon. "This is your final warning." Sarah's voice carried no threat, just certainty. We don't want to destroy you. We don't even want to conquer you, but we will not allow you to threaten Earth or any other world. You have a choice to make." As if to emphasize her point, a new set of signals appeared in meridian space. Human ships emerged from quantum space, but not like any ships the Empire had seen before. These vessels seemed to bend reality around them, their very presence causing Imperial sensors to report impossible readings. "While you were learning to master the universe's rules," Sarah explained, "we were learning to break them. Every science fiction story, every wild theory, every impossible idea, we considered them all. Some of them turned out to be possible if you just looked at physics the right way." The human fleet took up position around Meridia, but made no aggressive moves. They didn't need to. Their very presence, and the implications of what humanity had achieved, was enough. In a private quantum channel, Sarah addressed Vex Thor directly. "You know what's interesting about humans, Commander? We're incredibly good at breaking things, systems, rules, limits. We look at them and think, how can we get around that? Your empire has spent millennia building the perfect civilization. We've spent millennia imagining how to deal with exactly that kind of civilization." The Imperial Council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Their perfect technology, the foundation of their power, could be rendered useless at humanity's whim. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through fundamental changes to how reality worked in their vicinity. "Your move, Council members," Sarah said quietly. "You can either adapt to a universe where you're not the only ones who understand how reality works, or you can continue this war. But I should warn you, what you've seen so far, it's just the beginning of what we can do. We've got thousands of years of science fiction writers who came up with ideas we're just now figuring out how to implement." As if to demonstrate her point, one of the human ships simply disappeared, not through any known form of cloaking or quantum shifting, but by somehow making the space it occupied cease to exist in any meaningful way. "That's something we reverse engineered from a story written 300 years ago," Sarah commented casually. "We've got libraries full of similar ideas, and we're getting better at making them work. How many more of our impossible ideas would you like to see become reality?" The council chamber erupted in desperate discussion. Their entire civilization was based on their technological superiority. Now they faced a species that didn't just match their technology. They changed how technology itself worked. In his private chambers, Vex Thor reviewed the battle data from Earth again. He finally understood what he was seeing. The humans hadn't just prepared for alien invasion. They'd spent their entire history imagining every possible way it could happen and developing countermeasures, even for technologies they hadn't encountered yet. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in Imperial history, the outcome was no longer certain. Humanity had taken the offensive, not with brute force, but by changing the very nature of the battlefield. And they were just getting started. Deep within the quantum streams that connected Imperial worlds, something impossible was happening. Captain Maya Rodriguez and her small team of infiltrators weren't supposed to be able to exist here, in the space between spaces that the Empire used for faster-than-light communication. Yet here they were, surfing the quantum currents in their experimental suits, invisible to Imperial detection. "Status check," Maya whispered into her quantum comm, though she knew sound couldn't actually travel in this non-space. Old habits died hard. "Green," came 4 quiet responses from her team. Dr. Emma Chen, Sarah's daughter, and the architect of their quantum infiltration suits. Lieutenant James Wolfe, their systems specialist. Dr. Aisha Patel, their quantum physicist, and Sergeant David Kim, their security expert. They were attempting something that the Empire would have considered blasphemous if they'd even imagined it was possible: hacking the quantum network that served as the Empire's nervous system. Not from the outside, but from within the network itself. "Remember," Maya said, "we're not here to destroy anything. This is about changing perceptions." She checked her quantum positioning system, a device that shouldn't have worked in this environment. The Imperial Library node should be ahead. The Imperial Library was more than just a repository of knowledge. It was the backbone of Imperial civilization, the source of their technological and cultural unity. And humanity was about to introduce a little chaos into that perfect order. The team materialized inside the quantum core of the library, their suits allowing them to exist as both matter and information simultaneously. The space around them was a crystalline lattice of pure data, streams of quantum information flowing like rivers of light. "Beautiful," Emma whispered, her hands moving through complex patterns as she interfaced with the data streams. Their entire civilization, all their knowledge, flowing through this single point, and they never imagined anyone could reach it like this. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. They weren't going to destroy the library or its contents. Instead, they were going to add to it. Centuries of human literature, science fiction, philosophy, and imagination, carefully coded to integrate seamlessly with Imperial knowledge databases. "Installation beginning," Emma announced. "Time to completion. 30 minutes. Contact." David's warning came just as the first Imperial security program manifested, taking the form of a crystalline construct, the Empire's most advanced security system, designed to protect their most precious resource. But humanity had planned for this too. James stepped forward, activating a device that looked like a child's toy kaleidoscope. The security construct froze, caught in an infinite loop of contradictory quantum states. "Did you just crash their security eye with a paradox?" Isha asked, amused. James grinned behind his visor. "Turns out even quantum AIs have trouble with the grandfather paradox when you force them to process it in real time." The team worked quickly, seeding the library with carefully chosen human knowledge. Stories of rebellion against overwhelming odds. Scientific papers theorizing technologies the Empire had never considered. Philosophy that questioned the very nature of civilization and progress. "They're so focused on perfection," Emma said as she worked, "that they've forgotten the value of imperfection, of chaos and creativity, and thinking differently." Suddenly, the quantum streams around them shifted. "We've got company," Maya announced. "Big company." Through the quantum streams came Imperial ships, but not physical vessels. These were information constructs, the Empire's last line of defense within their own network. They looked like golden arrows of pure light, beautiful and deadly. "Time to show them another human specialty," Maya said. "Urban warfare, quantum style." The team split up, using the library's data architecture like a city's streets and buildings. They led the Imperial constructs on a chase through their own systems, using tactics developed in countless human conflicts. "You know what's funny?" Maya commented as she led several constructs into a trap. "We learned these tactics fighting ourselves. Every guerrilla war, every resistance movement. They'd all taught us something about fighting superior forces. The Imperial constructs were powerful but predictable. They followed optimal pursuit patterns, used perfect tactical formations, and that made them vulnerable to human unpredictability." James set up quantum echoes, creating false targets. Aisha used her understanding of quantum physics to turn data streams into weapons. David deployed electronic warfare suites that confused Imperial targeting systems, and Emma continued her work, protected by her team's distraction. "Upload complete," Emma announced finally. And I left them a little surprise. "What kind of surprise?" Maya asked as they prepared to exit the system. "I introduced their quantum AI to the concept of free will," Emma said with a smile in her voice. "Let's see how their perfect system handles that philosophical bomb." As they prepared to extract, Maya sent one final message, broadcasting it through the entire Imperial network. "Your library now contains some new information. We recommend starting with Earth's classical literature. Pay special attention to stories about rebellions, revolutions, and the power of individual choice. You might learn something about why you're losing this war." They emerged from the quantum stream back into normal space, their mission completed. But the effects were already beginning to spread through the Empire. On thousands of worlds, Imperial citizens accessed their library and found new ideas, new ways of thinking. The Empire had always controlled information, ensuring their people only learned approved knowledge. Now that perfect control was shattered. A revolution. Maya mused as they watched the quantum streams pulse with unprecedented activity, not through violence, but through ideas, through stories. Back on Earth, Sarah Chen received their mission report with satisfaction. The Empire was about to learn another human lesson, that sometimes the most powerful weapons aren't weapons at all, but ideas that make people question everything they thought they knew. The next phase of the war would be fought not with ships and weapons, but with thoughts and choices. And humanity had just seeded the Empire with 10,000 years' worth of revolutionary ideas. "Let's see how their perfect order handles a little chaos," Sarah said quietly, watching as the first reports of civil unrest began flowing in from Imperial worlds. The Empire was about to discover that their greatest threat wasn't humanity's weapons or technology. It was our capacity to inspire change. The Imperial Palace on Meridia was in chaos, not from weapons fire or physical damage, but from something far more devastating: change. The quantum screens that normally displayed perfect order now showed reports from across the Empire of citizens asking questions that had never been asked before, thinking thoughts that had never been thought. High Commander Vexthor stood before the Imperial Council, his skin cycling through patterns of distress. "The contamination from their information attack has spread to 60% of our worlds. Our citizens they're thinking differently, questioning things. Some are even suggesting that our perfect order might not be so perfect." The Grand Counselor, her ancient face lined with worry, leaned forward. "And the human fleet? They haven't moved. They maintain their position at the edge of our core systems, but they're not attacking. They don't need to. They're watching us tear ourselves apart with ideas." The chamber's quantum field suddenly shifted, and Sarah Chen appeared again. But this time she wasn't alone. She stood with her daughter Emma and a group of Imperial citizens, scientists, philosophers, and ordinary people who had been transformed by exposure to human ideas. "Your civilization is built on the pursuit of perfection," Sarah said quietly. "Ours is built on the acceptance of imperfection and the constant drive to improve despite it. That's what you never understood about us." One of the Imperial citizens stepped forward, a quantum physicist who had been studying human scientific theories. "The humans don't just think differently," he announced, his skin showing patterns of excitement that would have been suppressed in the old order. "They imagine differently. They're fiction, they're stories, they're not just entertainment. They're thought experiments, preparations for possibilities we never even considered." Emma spoke next, her voice carrying the same quiet authority as her mother's. "We found something interesting in your historical records. 10,000 years ago, your species faced a choice between perfect order and creative chaos. You chose order. Humans, we choose chaos every time, because that's where innovation comes from." The council chamber erupted in debate, but it wasn't the measured, controlled discussion of the past. It was passionate, messy, human. The Empire's perfect order was dissolving, replaced by something new and uncertain. In orbit above Meridia, Maya Rodriguez and her team watched from their ship as the transformation spread. "They're not just adopting our ideas," she observed. "They're adapting them, making them their own. That's exactly what we hoped would happen." Sarah nodded. The Empire spent 10,000 years trying to perfect what is. Humans spend their lives imagining what could be. That's a power greater than any weapon. Suddenly, the quantum fields around them shifted. Imperial ships appeared, but not in attack formation. They arranged themselves in a pattern that Sarah recognized from human naval history, a sign of parley. Vexthor's voice came through, different from before. His usual patterns of superiority were gone, replaced by something new. "Director Chen, the Council, we wish to discuss terms, not of surrender, but of change." The negotiation that followed was unlike anything in imperial history. It wasn't a discussion of territories or technologies, but of ideas. The empire was transforming, not through conquest, but through the most human of weapons: imagination. "We propose a new arrangement," the Grand Counselor announced. "Not an empire of perfect order, but a federation of diverse approaches. We have much to learn from humanity's chaos, just as perhaps you have things to learn from our order." Sarah smiled. "That's the most human thing you've said yet." Acknowledging that everyone has something to learn. The war ended not with a bang or a surrender, but with a conversation. The Meridian Empire became the Meridian Federation, a civilization that embraced both order and chaos, perfection and imperfection. Years later, Sarah Chen stood at that same window in Lunar Base Alpha where the war had begun, watching ships from across the Federation coming and going. Human chaos and imperial order had merged into something new, something neither civilization had imagined before. "You know what the real victory was," she said to Emma, who now led Earth's Xenotechnology division. "Not that we won the war, but that we ended it by making them understand us rather than destroying them." Emma nodded. "The best victories aren't the ones where you defeat your enemy, but the ones where you turn them into friends by showing them a better way." In the end, humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been their quantum technology, their tactical brilliance, or even their ability to change the rules of physics. It had been their capacity to imagine different possibilities, to dream of better futures, and to share those dreams with others. The stars seem brighter now, filled not just with potential threats to be defended against, but with opportunities for new stories, new ideas, and new ways of thinking. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious not by conquering their enemy, but by inspiring them to change. And somewhere in the vast library of the new Federation, among the quantum data streams that connected 1,000 worlds, human stories continued to spread, teaching new generations that the greatest power in the universe isn't perfection. It's the ability to imagine something better and the courage to make it real.